We're good?
Yep.
All right, welcome to the Township of Bedminster regular Township Committee meeting for September 16th. It is 7 p.m. and I'll recognize that we have a full complement of Township Committee in attendance. Ms. Sullivan, may we please have the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Yes, sir. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Courier News in Somerville and the Burnsville News in Whippany. Also, we sent it to all subscribers. It is posted here at the municipal building, and it's done so as of January 7th, 2019.
Great, thank you. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two meeting minutes to approve, the September 3, 2019 regular Township Committee meeting minutes and the September 3, 2019 executive closed session minutes. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the minutes that have not already been provided to Ms. Sullivan and addressed?
The small typo we took care of.
If not, can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I was not present last week, so I can't vote.
You're abstaining?
Yes.
Permits and raffles. We have 4 permits and raffles for tonight. We are going to run through the first 3, and then we will deal with the 4th one in a little more detail. So the first one is social fair permit for the Lamington Presbyterian Church on September 28, 2019, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Lamington Presbyterian Church, 355 Lamington Road, Bedminster, New Jersey. Second is an on-premise merchandise raffle on November 16, 2019 to benefit Cure for IBD at Fiddler's Elbow Country Club from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. The third is casino night on November 16, 2019 to benefit Cure for IBD at Fiddler's Elbow Country Club from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. If there's any questions or comments, please ask them now. Otherwise, can I have a motion to approve those 3 permits and raffles?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the 4th one is helicopter landing permit for First Energy to facilitate the replacement of a telephone pole located on the border of Peapack Gladstone Borough and Bedminster Township that requires permission for a temporary helicopter landing zone on property near the intersection of Peapack Road and Old Dutch Road belonging to Natterar. So, Judy and Chief Rock, I think we've some information about this, but if you want to give us a little more detail.
We received notification of this, it's an emergency repair. We received information about this late Friday. Actually, it was originally sent to our code enforcement department. They weren't sure why they were getting it. They forwarded it to me. I reviewed it and forwarded it to the chief. The chief spent the better part of the morning working out a lot of details and speaking with a lot of individuals regarding the details. So I'm going to hand it off to the chief, who knows a lot more about this than I do.
Thank you. So apparently there's a transmission line that is not accessible by modern equipment, trucks, and anything like that, and it runs to our northeastern border, just between Far Hills and Peapack Gladstone. The only way to get to this pole to replace it is with a helicopter. So what the plan is to have, there's going to be 2 helicopters. One's going to be larger and it's going to be able to take the equipment over to the site and place it down. The larger helicopter should not be landing on the parcel. The parcel is owned by the County of Somerset Park Commission. So the piece of land is just north. If you heading north on Peapack Road, passing Old Dutch Road, the field on the right. That's the field that is going to be known as the landing zone. The smaller helicopter, my understanding is going to be used to transport the crew and stuff over to the scene. The pole and any equipment that they need to get. And where the pole is, it's over the river, so there's really no way to get in there. It comes down to the plan they sent over indicated that for Main Street, we would have to stop traffic while the helicopters are obviously in the area. So we devised a traffic plan. We have variable message boards going out tomorrow to indicate that, the road is subject to closure between the hours of 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. They're hoping to get it all done in one day. And other than that, the helo permit is just, I guess, the NJDOT or Aeronautic Division just needs the town's blessing that we don't have any concerns about them. Obviously, we're not pilots, but just utilizing that parcel, which doesn't belong to us, to sit down the helicopter.
So can you just give a little more detail on the road closures? Where it's going to be closed, from what part? How long, with the break in, where's the break in service?
Only when they're in the air, and it will be closed at Old Dutch Road and Peapack Road. So anybody coming north will have to utilize Old Dutch Road to go to 206 and around. And then on the Peapack side, it'll be, a structured shutdown at the Nataror entrance. And people could either turn around or just wait. So it all depends on what they're moving, how long the road might be closed. So it won't be a solid closure, it's going to be periodic when they have to operate the helicopter.
So, other than that section of Peapack Road, which I guess physically is within Bedminster, within our boundaries, but at that point it's really not serving any Bedminster residents other than folks who might be coming from Old Dutch Road and heading north up on Peapack or coming up from Main Street. And they give you an indication of how long those temporary closures would be in place for. Is this, we're talking about 10 minutes, 15 minutes a pop?
The original paperwork said 30 minutes, and then the individual from the helicopter firm said probably 15 minutes. So any of the big things that they need to pick up, say they're going to have it already rigged on the parcel, and the helicopter will drop, and they'll hook it up, and it'll go. The larger helicopter won't set down. So I imagine just the smaller bird will sit down just to get the crew, whatever they need to get, and then they'll get up and down. So it's the first time for me.
And
It'll work.
So the landing zone it's a landing zone for the helicopter, but has the material, for example, the replacement pole and the equipment, has that already been mobilized to the site?
It's not here. No.
It's not there yet?
No.
But no indication that it'll be Thursday, it's not going to, the weather is good, so it's
The
not
weather
going to
looks
bleed
great
over?
for Thursday, and that's what they're shooting for Thursday, and they're all hoping to have it done on Thursday, and not running to Friday.
And apparently the pole they're replacing is in very bad shape. They're very concerned about it.
Any impact to the bus routes on Thursday? Do we have to give
I'll
heads
put
up
out
to
the
the...
message, when it's all, if it's confirmed,
Yeah,
we'll let the transportation, at least in Bedminster School as well as Burnsville
right,
districts. I don't know, the private schools who might use that route.
right.
Like I said, tomorrow the posting will go up on the boards that says expect delays in the area.
Right.
Between
Yeah, I
these
think
hours.
for Far Hills and for Peapack, they'll be on the train.
Right, they should
So
be.
at
I'm just
least for
thinking-
the, right, chiefs of
What about the
public
train
school.
coming through?
They're gonna be in the air.
No, but I'm saying that the train goes right through where the helicopter is going to be going over.
They didn't make any mention about New Jersey Transit.
No, that's something that they'll have to take up with transit, right? I mean, certainly that's not a Bedminster Police Department issue, but you want to remind them that there's a train service right through there.
So they procured all the county approvals as well? I mean,
They have the permission to use the county parcel. That was about the extent of the county's involvement.
got it.
And
they-
they provided insurance certificates for the county that they're satisfied.
And with the notice that they've given, have they also secured the appropriate permit from P-PAC. So if we're approving this for the landing here,
Well, they're not landing in P-PAC.
they're not landing, but aren't they, so it's only for the landing. So even though they're having the road closure on the P-PAC side, they don't need a permit. And just to confirm, how many police officers from Bedminster will be assigned to the road closures?
Just one.
Just one? And that's off-duty from JCP&L, First Energy?
Correct. Or actually from the contractor that's performing work on behalf of First Energy.
Okay, and request has already come through?
Not yet.
Not yet?
It went out.
Okay.
And then P-PAC will have one on their side.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Sullivan or for the chief?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we have a motion to approve that helicopter landing permit.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Comments, twice each night. That microphone and that dais right there open for, well, actually, the lectern, open for comments from the public. Got some folks out here. Mr. DiChiara. I'm doing well. And you, sir?
Tom DiChiara, 58 Pheasantbrook Court. Mr. Mayor, Township Committee, Mr. Mance, Ms. Sullivan, Ms. Lillardo, and Chief Rock. I just want to hand out, so you can just follow along. I'm going to leave them with you anyway. So, just give you a little update for you. So you have you follow along, and of course, you can leave with you. You wouldn't mind this.
Sure.
We'll give you a copy. I also serve, other than being a resident, I also am a trustee on the Hills Village North Manchester Association. Jackie Weber is our vice president. Traditionally, over the years, we have invited the Township Committee to come before the Master Association, which represents 6 neighborhoods in the hills here. And basically Birchwood, Wood Pond, Portland, Wynwood, and Four Oaks. Am I missing one? And Wynwood. And we invite 2 members of the Township Committee to come before us and just to chat with us, to let us know, bring us up to date what's going on in the township. And for us to present any issues that we have as a board and as residents here in the hills. Over the years, that has worked very productively for both the Township Committee and for us. We've exchanged some very frank and productive discussions. Back in June, June 27th, we were pleased to have Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Risky come to us and join in our discussion for the evening. I won't go over the summary of that whole meeting, but just one issue that did come up, and we wanted to just briefly go over it with you this evening at the request of both Committeeman Stevenson and Committeeman Risky. We put together a notification. The discussion at the time was, can you prepare a resolution, signatures, and bring it up? And being that it was June, people are on vacation, getting people together, it was very difficult to walk around and try and get signatures. So what we wanted to do, and the reason why we're doing this, because we're now into September, we were hoping to get this before the committee, so they can consider with John and look at, how you might be able to do some improvements along Robertson Road. What we did was we drafted up a notification, and it has some whereases and now therefore, similar to a resolution, but it's not legally binding on the Master Association. We just want to present it to you as information, take it into consideration, hopefully you can get back to us if you need anything further from us and what we can hope to get back from the Township Committee. So if I may, I'd just like to read through it, and because I know we don't want to be here all night, and I can stand here all night, as you know, and talk. So
Oh, no, you can't. You will not be standing here all night talking.
3 minutes.
Okay, so let's go through this quickly. It's a notification to the Bedminster Township Committee in support of the installation of an American Disabilities Act ADA compliant crossing walk along Robertson Drive at the intersections of Artillery Road and Wentworth Road. So, whereas Robertson Drive, a township-owned road and maintained local road, is one of the busiest township roads in the township and continues to grow in average daily traffic. Whereas Robertson Drive traverses through and directly serves 4 of the most densely populated residential neighborhoods in the township of Bedminster, namely Wood Duck Pond, Birchwood, Cortland, Wynwood, all of which have frontage on Robertson Drive and are part of the Hills Village North Master Association. And whereas Robertson Drive is almost 1 mile in length and serves as a bypass to Route 206, 202 by commuters en route to King Shopping Plaza, the I-278 access ramps, and north and southbound routes 206, 202. Whereas Robertson Drive has experienced an increase in travel speed during the morning and evening peak travel hours. Whereas only one ADA compliant street crossing exists along Robertson Drive at the intersection of Bradford Road by the daycare center, which we all know. And whereas the crossing at Bradford Road provides the only safe crossing along the entire length of Robertson Drive. And whereas the increase of pedestrian traffic along Robertson Drive and at the intersections of Artillery Park Road and Wentworth Road has resulted in an unsafe condition where conflicts between pedestrians and vehicular traffic exists. Whereas the alignment and topography of Robertson Road results in various blind spots, particularly at the 4 intersections along Robertson Drive. Whereas recent pedestrian activity across Robertson Drive has resulted in potential pedestrian conflicts, near misses as we call it, with vehicles. This is a sidebar. Last October, Halloween, I was driving home from work, and I will tell you we've seen an increase in youngsters and young people, I guess, participating in Halloween events. Last year was the biggest number of Halloween trick-or-treaters I've seen in Bedminster since I've been living here. If you go up to Long Meadow and along Robertson, it was pretty impressive, all the kids we have, and that's great. The problem is, as I was driving home, coming up the rise by the pond, 2 girls were running across the street in their costumes to get from one side to the other, and 2 cars were coming up, and literally they had to almost jam on their brakes. The 2 girls got scared and ran across the street. And they were crossing at the worst possible location on Robertson Drive. And it's the darkest, and because of the reverse curves and the incline, it almost gave me a heart attack. I could have feared the worst. So let me just continue. Whereas the introduction of new observation walkway and vegetation coverings at Wood Duck Pond, as you might have noticed over the last several months, the master has done some magnificent improvements, making it nice with vegetation and even a sitting and walking area. This increased viewing of the pond by many residents who need to cross Robertson Drive at the unprotected crossing. Whereas, as a result of the alignment of Robertson Drive, reverse curves and inclines, and the function of the road as a non-designated bypass to Route 206, 202, for many residents and commuters, travel speed often exceeds the posted limit of 25-mile-per-hour limit. Whereas the lack of appropriate and enforceable speed reduction and traffic calming measures, including police radar, has resulted in high levels of speed exceedances along the roadway, which have been observed. And whereas the low-level lighting and often non-functioning street lighting along Robertson Drive has resulted in blind spots and dark locations for both pedestrians and vehicles traveling along Robertson Drive. And whereas the low-level lighting has resulted in dark spots in the evening and nighttime where pedestrians preparing to cross Robertson at Bradford are not totally visible, and where at the intersection, the stop of the pedestrian signs in the middle of the roadway have often been hit by vehicles traveling through the intersection. I think, John, you might have known, we had to call you several times, they had to come back and pick up that sign that was dragged almost down to 206 by somebody's car. It's amazing they didn't notice that was underneath their car. So even having a sign there is still not 100% cause for safety. So, with that in mind, whereas the board members of the Hills Village North Master Association, as well as the board members of the HVNN neighborhoods, of the various neighborhoods I mentioned, all represent the best interest of the owners and tenants that reside in these neighborhoods. And as township residents, all of us, we're all concerned over pedestrian travel safety along Robertson Road. So without being too resolution-oriented, I'd like to say that now therefore, that as a result of the discussions held between the Hills Village North Master Association Board of Trustees and Committeeman Douglas Stevenson and committee persons, Douglas, sorry.
It's all right, I'm good with it.
Committee persons Douglas Stevenson and Renee Moreski on June 27th, the following is being offered to the Bedminster Township Committee for consideration and hopeful action. 1, there exists an immediate need for the Township of Bedminster to install ADA-compliant pedestrian crossings at the Robertson Drive intersections at Redworth and Artillery Road. There exists an immediate need for increased law enforcement of the posted speed limit of 25 miles an hour along Robertson Drive. The placement of the requested ADA-compliant crossings along Robertson Drive at Artillery and Redworth is of immediate concern, and as a result, these improvements need to be advanced as soon as possible, hopefully within the next 3 to 6 months. There is an urgent need for the Township of Bedminster to install pedestrian-activated crossing signage at the intersection of Bradford Road and Robertson Drive. And finally, there's a need for the Township of Bedminster to investigate and consider additional appropriate measures and means for traffic calming along Robertson Drive to control vehicular travel speed and volumes and to avoid and prevent potential pedestrian and vehicular conflicts. Now, I realize we cannot do anything much about the alignment of Robertson Road. It's there, it's going to be there. We can't change its topography. So as a result, and I think historically, as we all know, what's been happening with I-287 and the change of turning at the River Road and the 206, 202, and Access Road intersections, that's different than it was 20, 30 years ago. So people are reacting to that, now using Robertson Drive as a bypass. They're avoiding the turnaround. And some of the 18-wheelers, I can't believe I've actually seen 18-wheelers come off and get on Robertson Drive and take it down to King's Plaza. It's not a road for 18-wheelers to be on. You have a couple of trees, and God forbid there were children by the daycare center crossing. It just didn't make us feel comfortable. But it happens. It's the reason why we're on 202, 206. With that being said, we're very happy that Doug and Renee were able to come out and listen to us. Did make our concerns known. You asked us to memorialize that the best we could. We weren't in a position to write a formal resolution with signatures. I don't know how much more we would need to do, but just to present this to you and with this information, take it into consideration.
So Tom, without the, and just so that we know, so while you the Hills Village Master North, or Hills Village North Master may not have taken formal action, but just to be clear, this certainly represents the sentiment of the association, correct?
Well, the association and the residents. I mean,
No, I just want to be clear that you guys as the Master Association reps, so Mayor, if I can just... This is your doc, right? So you're good with that?
But we're not representing the Hills Village North Master, we're representing ourselves to begin with.
Okay, right.
Because
So-
we, as trustees, we didn't want to come here unless we had all the trustees here with us, and we didn't get a signed document, but we figured, let's present the information to you. We're more than happy to show you the places that are conflicts. If you want to meet some morning, to show you how fast these cars are going on the road, what they're doing, and where these conflict points are. We right now, as you probably know if you go by the ponds, we have a sidewalk that basically ends. It's a sidewalk to nowhere. It just stops, and then there's grass beyond that. But right across the street is where people are crossing because they assume it's a corner to the pond is a crossing area, and people are making that crossing. So all we want to do is have that where the sidewalk ends, continue. Do a curb cut with ADA compliant, do the same thing on the other side, stripe it like we did on Bradford, put up the state law stop sign there. It gives people an opportunity to cross from that one section instead of walking all the way down to Bradford and then coming all the way back. And you know what happens. People are going to take the shortest distance between 2 points. They're not going to use it. So they don't have an alternative. So they either walk all the way down to Bradford or they're going to cross anywhere along Robertson Drive. So that's why there's an urgency. It's already there. It's a logical place to put it. Wide sidewalk it ended the way it did and stopped, I have no idea. We weren't here when it was built. It should have continued, and it should have been a curb cut there. But, and remember, that road was a private road. It was owned by the association. What was it, 10 years ago, transferred title over? Chief, I don't know, maybe you know when Robertson transferred over, maybe 15 years ago. So now I'm just asking if you can look into it, maybe John and his crew, and get some traffic guys out there and look at it and see. It's not a real big construction job. I mean, we're putting a curb cut in, putting the ramps for the handicapped there, and striping it, and putting a sign.
Okay.
So it's not really a big capital expenditure, and that's all we're asking.
Okay, so you and Nay had some follow-up after that meeting?
Right, so I just wanted to just put a little, frame it for the committee. When Renee and I went and met with Tom and his group, this issue came up. And we simply said, look, hear you, but this can't be, a request from one person or two people. We need to know that this is coming from the homeowners association, that this is something that the association wants on behalf of everybody that the association represents. So I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing here. But I would have the same question that you had, Mayor, and that, you acknowledge that it's not been signed by the association, and the question was put.
We didn't have the opportunity to gather everyone and to sign. The reason why some of us wanted the urgency is only because we're going into the winter months, and we were hoping that if there was something in the capital program or the budget that would allow, it makes sense to put something like this in. Could you accommodate that before we get into the winter months? Personally, I was hoping to do it before Halloween, because I don't want to see what almost happened again. But we had a meeting, everybody was there, you were at the meeting, even the residents who were not board members were there, came up with the same concerns, and amongst other things. But I think everyone is in agreement that we'd like to see at the very least, that one location with an ADA compliant crossing.
But can I just clarify, because I think the Mayor had asked earlier whether this was a formal document issued with the approval and consent of the association. I thought you said no, you're just here for yourself. And that was the issue that I had last time, that we can't take these issues on for one concerned citizen, and whether it's right, wrong, or otherwise. I'm not calling the ball on that. I'm just simply saying that that's a tough ask. And it would be far easier if the association is saying, yes, we are all in lockstep on this. This is what we want. That's a different issue.
I know. I just wanted to bring this to your opinion, because even without us saying it, if it's in the capital program and from a safety point of view.
Well, right. Certainly as a safety concern, it's been brought to our attention, and we'll look at it. But from our side, and just to reinforce what Committeeman Stevenson said, if you could show that this is not only supported by you individuals, but also by the association on one side of the road, the association on the other, and for the master, right, because I'm going to assume that the area around the pond that's controlled by the master association, so that, just as you indicated, the sidewalk ends, right? Sidewalk ends, that would seem that would be a natural place to cross over, especially you've got the dog bag station.
Forgive me for jumping in here. As we're sitting here talking about it, I'm forgetting, I remember the sidewalk ending clearly. Is it a possibility to continue that sidewalk up on that side, or is that not possible?
Because it goes up to the little stone wall we have there.
Okay.
And then there's an incline across from the commercial properties there.
So there's not room for the sidewalk to continue the left-hand
I
side?
don't know. You would have to basically cut in and do a lot of cutting and going all the way out to the other street.
That also goes into the other associations. That's
Yeah,
the
that's a
one
different
side
one
of
from
Stone
Hills
Run.
Village. That's,
Yeah, so the left.
Not saying you can't do it, but that just gets more people.
Heading towards King's, left-hand side of the street, coming up to the pond there, the rest of the way, sidewalk's only on the right? There is no sidewalk on the left?
Correct. If you
Yeah,
go just past the pond,
It would probably be more expensive to do the sidewalk all the way down than just do it across.
That's Hills Village Association. We end right at that little brick wall there.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Okay.
That's where
I mean,
their
if
section
they
is.
wanted to do something later on, certainly connect with the sidewalks, that's something that they would do. Go all the way out, that would be nice too.
And then you do
Yeah,
that one
they don't have
crossing up
sidewalks.
by Hills Drive.
On
I see.
Hills Drive doesn't have sidewalks.
Not that I'm
We have the,
Yeah, it's
we
boulevard.
have
It's
the
boulevard,
trail.
right.
Yeah.
So there's no need, I'm sure they would say they don't have a need for
I don't see the
sidewalk there.
purpose of that sidewalk. It's just because it ends where our neighborhoods, and then people are using that location to cross without any really safe crossing. So if realizing that you were going to ask that question, we wanted to get it before you, only because it's September. At least want to get the conversation started more just between you and the rest of the Township Committee, with some input from the chief to see what we can do about traffic calming and traffic speed reduced. I know it's not easy, but we were hoping to see a little more radar units out there or some signs, whatever we could do to slow the traffic down. But if we need something more formalized, we will certainly, when we meet at the end of the month, next Monday, Jackie and I will go back and report to the board. We put an unofficial, non-binding resolution or a series of information before you. If you want us to formalize that, if that's going to help, if that's what's needed, we'll do whatever's needed.
I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think just getting an indication, you don't have to retype this, right? So just say, just something that would indicate that,
Attach that to anything.
that the Master Association supports,
Endorses the attachment.
no, just supports it. That's all we
Or
need.
supports it.
That's all.
Supports the notion of an additional crosswalk where the sidewalk terminates.
Well, I think he's got more than,
Well,
he's got a series of
That's
asks.
the priority. I mean, that makes sense, because the sidewalk's there and stuff.
I'll support
And
the
the other one
concept.
is something that,
Right.
you may find out, the traffic guys may say, it's not a good place to put the crossing.
And,
Look-
and I think that falls on us, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
there's a lot of information out here, but we have professionals.
Yeah.
So we have a professional engineer, we have a professional,
You go
traffic
back and
engineer, so
talk to
between-
Let them get some input into it.
so between Paul and perhaps Chuck, there may be reasons why all of these elements are supported and should be implemented. There may be technical reasons why that may not be a great location. Certainly on traffic and pedestrian crossings, that's something that Chuck Olivo can provide some comment on. And I'm just, is there any history, either Judy, that you or John Mance or Chief,
John and
you
I
have?
discussed this idea previously. I mean, this isn't the first time that this idea has been brought to us. We have met with Paul Ferrell about this idea. We did get from him actually a quote as to how much of a cost. It's not
Cheap.
It's not cheap. The design is quite expensive. What was it?
I don't remember the number, it was not.
We have numbers from Bradford, that should pretty much, I mean, I can't imagine it's going to be any more or any less. Well, actually, Bradford has two crossings there. If you take one out, basically the cost would have cost us on Bradford divided by half.
I think it was
That's what
upwards
we-
of 50,000. Upwards of what? 50,000.
So if you, that was the new one, or is that what Bradford cost?
For ADA compliant,
To do a new curb cut ADA compliant crosswalk.
It's high, but, okay.
It's a back of the napkin, Paul
Yeah,
estimate.
that seems a little high to me, but I'm not going to say yes or no.
You know,
upwards of $50,000?
I don't recall.
Zero?
I thought it was in the neighborhood. I could be wrong.
However, we need to get them to look at it at some point in time, which is fine.
You could hire somebody
The-
to
the,
to
uh,
the crosswalk.
Just as a comment that I've had some discussion with Doug and a couple other people is the ownership. Where does ownership lie? We own to the curb line because it's really a lot and block on it that shows on the tax map. Our responsibility really falls right there.
Well, was there
That.
a full dedication of the road to the township?
There was a dedication, but the dedication was for that lot and block, if that's all it was. The history and the reason that sidewalk never continued is that that road used to terminate right at that intersection right there, where that pump station is, because the office complex, the medical building, owns the rest of Robertson Drive at that point in time. That's why. So there was actually a barrier between the two roads, which was then taken out to extend Robertson Drive. The lights that are on the Stone Run side belong to, which we maintain, belong to the medical complex. The power for those light poles come from the medical complex. So it's a very convoluted road out there. So the reason those intersections or those crosswalks never got put in is probably because of that, and never was extended past where Mr. Teixeira says it stops.
John, do you have Any recollection of the dedication of that road to the township?
That was before my time, Mayor. I'm familiar with that road, I'm familiar with the sidewalk. There's people in my running club, we've run all the way through the hills, and I know generally it ends and then I just cross over. But that was long before my time, the dedication of the road.
Right,
It
could-
was some time ago.
Okay,
I'm gonna say
could you
like
get a copy of the
7
dedication and give it over to John?
Maybe like 17 years ago or something? Because when we got the road, you took the stop sign out. And I remember when I was looking for properties, a friend of mine was driving, I said, stop at the stop sign. There was no stop sign. He's like, what are you talking about? They had taken the
Right.
sign out and blacktopped the white stripe. So that's been a while.
So that, at the intersection there was a stop sign, it was a three-way stop at one point in time, allowed the crossing of that area right there. When the dedication came through, I think it was Paul's suggestion is you can't have that stop because it's a through street. So we eliminated the stop on Robertson Drive, which then eliminated the crosswalk also. And it wasn't a dedicated crosswalk, I think it was just a striped area that they could cross at.
What was the history of the stop sign there? I mean, to have a stop sign there, which is sort of, as Mr. DiChiara said, you're sort of at, well, you are at the top of a hill. That stop sign problematic for vehicular traffic?
It was at the
Don't
time.
remember Woodduck used to, High Pond used to open up right onto Robertson back then.
That's correct.
Did it open up or?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was an open road.
At
Yeah,
that
it's been
time.
closed off obviously since, but
Yeah.
that's probably why the stop sign was there.
Yeah. Well, the design was never correct anyway.
Correct.
Yeah, and just to reinforce something that Mr. DiChiara says that, none of us were around when the Hills was designed, or the road network was laid out, or other elements of the Hills development were constructed. And if we were to redo it, we would probably redo many different things.
We do it all.
And so,
Lighting.
Yeah.
well, and lighting may come up later in this meeting, actually.
Mayor, can I just ask another question about this?
Sure.
Mr. DiChiara, you got a couple nice little nuggets in here in your write-up, and I was just going to ask whether was this historical knowledge put together by the author, or do you have data to back up some of what you're saying?
It was basically something that I and a few others just wrote based on observation.
Based on your-
We don't have any
okay.
traffic data, but
Okay.
we observe.
Okay, that's-
I mean, you're living here over 20 years, you see how a road just
Right.
increases, and you see the type of traffic, and you see where it's coming from, and you see, and look, everybody agrees, you're rushing to get a cup of coffee at the Dunkin' Donuts, you're on your way to work, you're on the highways, it's what, 65 posted? You do 60 on 287, you're getting run off the road. We realize people are in a hurry, but this is a very local residential road, and unfortunately, its character has changed from its initial intent. We all realize that. So what do we do about it? We have to react. New traffic, as an engineer in my company, we deal with traffic calming issues. And, it's the road's not going to change. So how do you do that to make the road? Paul knows all about these different aspects. So does Frank Banish. These are things that we may want to consider to slow the road down. I mean, you want to get from point A to point B, fine, but observe the speed and protect the integrity of the road.
This is very similar to what was going on up in Knollcrest a couple years back about traffic, slowing the traffic, and do you use speed bumps, do you use signs, do you use crosswalks, do you use...
We have those speed bumps. Some people like them, some don't, but
Right.
does it function? Does it work? Nobody wants to go over a bump with a $60,000 car. They will slow it down. It's a toss-up. Some people like them, some don't, but does it do its function? So what can we do? What can we look at? What's the most cost-effective, and what's the most short-term remedy we can do to help just protect the roadway and the residents that are crossing both sides of the street? And that's all we're looking for. If you would like to give some direction on what you would like us as a board to do, to present back to you, let us know now, because when we meet in late September, we can bring that back to them and say the Township Committee has heard us. To move forward, they would like the following. So what would you like us to take back?
Okay. We can circle back to you with that if there's anything.
Chief, you must know a lot of ways too, also to, calm traffic down stuff. Other than sitting there with a police car, but suggestions anybody has, would be really good for us. We'll take whatever you can give us to slow the traffic down and make it safe for us to cross the street. That's all it is.
Okay. Mr. D. Chair, we will forward a copy of this to both Mr. Ferrero, to Chuck Olivo, Chief Will. Did you get your copy?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you do get your copy. Okay. So, and then perhaps you and Paul and with John Mans can reconvene. At the same time, I do want to get a copy of that dedication over John so you can confirm just exactly what rights the township and what authority the township has with respect to the bed of the road. Okay? And as well as the curb cut, and see where the, what the roadway is and how much that is Bedminster property, under Bedminster control, and we will all report back. And from your end, just a quick email or something from the Master Association indicating support for the issues raised by
To
you.
you or Doug? Or
Doesn't matter.
Or Renee? Doesn't matter?
Any
Send
one
it
of the
straight to
three.
Judy.
Or Judy.
Okay. We'll bring it up at the next, we'll see how we can move that.
Super.
But
Great.
we do appreciate the township paving the road, putting in the crossings at Bradford. I think it's made a big difference. We have the daycare center there, and you get a lot of neighborhoods that cross to use our pedestrian, our bikers and everything.
While you're speaking,
It's a lot of
Tom,
time.
while you're speaking, you should be closer to the mic so that we can make sure that you are properly recorded.
But we appreciate the roadway, we put in the new bike paths and the pedestrian walkway going through our parks, one of the finest in the county, and a lot of people cross Bradford and Robertson to get to that every day they use it, so that's increased pedestrian traffic. That Bradford intersection with those ADA compliant sidewalks have, I think, increased safety tremendously, especially because we have a school bus stop there, we have a daycare center. And I remember we had many conversations and we got that done. So now we're trying to see if we can do the same thing on the other side.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Giuchiara. The microphone and the lectern are still available. Anyone has public comments? Once again, there will be another opportunity in the meeting. Seeing none, we will move on to monthly report discussions by subcommittee chairs, and we will start with Mr. Stevenson.
Thank
Well,
you,
I
Mayor.
believe you've had quite a busy couple of weeks.
Busy couple weeks. Busy's good. Busy's good. Better than the alternative. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Since last meeting, had the opportunity with Committeewoman Moreski to attend the Hills Highland Master Association annual meeting. It was a well-attended meeting. Representatives from all of the from the sub-associations, if you will, that report into the master were all there. They had some guests from Bernard's Township there to do a little presentation about Bernard's efforts to get out their messaging. Relevant for our purposes only because it seems like they're trying to do, the things that we were grappling with when we were redoing our website. So, just getting word out, the automatic Nixle programs, they're encouraging folks to sign up for that. There was a robust discussion about, yes, they were the communication task force. Very nice. And Renee has the PowerPoint, should anybody wish to see it. But there was a nice, I don't want to say heated, but a back and forth discussion about a dog park up in the top of the Hills Highlands. So, of course, when it was our turn to speak, I invited everybody down to our dog park. But all kidding aside, it was a good meeting. Gave a little presentation about the things that are going on here. Talked about our initiative with JCP&L, trying to bring them in to interface with the Hills residents directly. That raised the question by one of the Bernard's residents as to whether we were coordinating with Bernard's Township on these issues. And I responded that I didn't believe that was the case, but if they thought that would be helpful, we would certainly reach out and let them know what's going on, and they're welcome to show up here. One of the issues that came up that I thought would be interesting to raise, if you want to wait for new business, I can do that, or if I can do it now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in speaking with some of the folks in the associations, I understand that one association, Stone Edge, has gone over to LED lights. And through the Kelly bill, how we help offset those costs. So the question came to me to ask the committee whether it makes sense for there to be some sort of program, or reach out maybe for, a governmental agency that runs programs, but to help offset the initial cost of converting over to LED, making the right decision. The bulbs burn much hot, much cooler, much longer. We're going to see the savings and then our contributions over time. They're going to get the savings over time, but they, bit the bullet, so to speak, and came out of pocket for a fairly large expenditure. And is it not right, and I ask this rhetorically, is it not right for us to help partner up with them on that? So I just ask for us to consider that. Maybe we can speak with Paul Ferraro, or I know, Colin, we just did it here in Town Hall, switching all the lights out. And are there any programs available that we can sort of tap into to help encourage homeowner associations to make that switch to LED? We talked about the Jacobus Vanderveer house. There was a nice presentation done on that, and the history of the house. We talked about our experiences with the house. It was a very nice meeting. Nothing really to report out of it. They approved their budget and they're off and running, but it was great to be there and to certainly support that effort. The DPW, John and I had a sit down last week. We talked about some of the programs or some of the projects we're working on. We took a ride out to Larger Cross Road. There was a complaint about you can't say pavement, but the dirt there, and there's just really nothing. It's amazing. I mean, you literally will drive down the road and the bumps will fishtail your car off the road, but there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you put the stones down and then they wash away and it comes right back again. So John's very much aware of it, and we explained to the woman who was complaining about it. It was the mother of someone who just purchased a home there, that you actually have to pick up your pace a little bit. Don't go too slow. But that it's, I don't know what else we can do there. I mean, John's all over it. And then we talked about plugging the Schoolhouse Park, which I'm going to let you talk about, Colin, on rec. So the other thing I'm working on, the ordinance that we've been talking about from time to time, whether it's abandoned property or what have you. I've met with Bernie Payne. We have a historic pres meeting coming up on Thursday. I would like to raise it with those folks on the committee, get their input, and then I would also propose to walk Main Street and talk to some of the business owners and get their thought about, do you think it's something we need? Is it something that you would encourage? Let's get the thought of our business community and get them to chime in. And it occurred to me that, this would have been a great topic for our Bedminster Business Bureau, or whatever the name of that was there for a period of time. It's a great natural segue to that, but unfortunately that organization sort of disbanded. But anyone out there listening, if I'd be happy to talk with you about it, reach out for me and we'll continue that discussion, because I think it's important. And as I mentioned, we've got a historic pres meeting coming up this week. Okay. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Committeeman Hickey.
Mayor, thank you. Good evening, all. As Committeeman Stevenson mentioned, Pluckman Schoolhouse Park work is proceeding on the overhaul of basketball courts. He and I have also held meetings with DPW and Rec to discuss what I'll loosely call the master plan for Pluckman Schoolhouse Park, so that the changes we're making now can accommodate future growth in terms of additional courts and additional activities. The vision is to provide a multi-purpose park that supports not only basketball and baseball, but volleyball, bocce, and potentially other racket sports, along with obviously the central pavilion area, which supports events and family activities. So just want to give you an update on that one. Also, I know I've reminded folks many times, but if you're interested in the Recovering Couch Potato Program, which starts next Wednesday, September 25th at 7 p.m. right here, you need to register by Friday, September 20th with Robin Ray. And she just put out the fall program guide for rec. It's also on the website. Lots of stuff going on, so there are copies in the back as well as on the website. Board of Health, we have a meeting this Thursday, the 19th, about 3 or 4 pending applications. And also want to give an update on the Lamington River Restoration Project, which completed last Saturday, the 14th.
Completed?
It is done.
Done, okay.
Wow.
For all phases?
Everything is done.
Everything
that was permitted is done.
All right.
EC Chairman Walter and I did an on-site review the prior Saturday. We got our feet wet and got right into the river. We made a request that the contractor reinforce the silt screening apparatus, which they did. And as reported previously, the watercolor should start to return to normal over the next couple of weeks as the particles settle out. And a little fun fact, among the items that were recovered from the river during the construction was a World War II helmet, which apparently was in pretty good condition.
Yeah.
Really?
As you dig, you find stuff. Matter of fact, the contractor said, if we had the time, it would be great to pan for gold here. All the gold. And that is all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Committeewoman Santucci.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of what I'm working on will be foreclosed, but a reminder that Bedminster Charities Fall Fest is coming up fast, October 26th.
October 26th.
Saturday, the last day of our farmers market. And our next meeting is 9/24, and we'll be touching base. So don't forget, I know we're selling raffle tickets at the farmers market
Yes.
as well. So we'll be out, and that's really all I have at this point.
Thank you.
What's about
Councilwoman
the
Moreski.
other thing under the other business?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, I'll give you a rundown of what happened at the last Environmental Commission meeting, September 4th. We had a speaker, Alex Ambrose from the ANJAC, and she was speaking on issues and solutions and ordinances of single-use plastics. I know that's come up a lot. She came in and talked to us about different kinds of single-use plastics like grocery bags, straws, styrofoam containers, and she was talking about how other towns were handling these kinds of things. Some towns have outright bans, some towns have a tax, they have charge a fee for single-use bags. Her suggestion, however, to Bedminster was to do a survey, first to see who in town does what with what plastics. It's too much of a thing to bite off if you don't know where you're going with the plastics. So ANJAC actually has a couple of surveys that we can steal. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then she thinks that it would be a good idea to organize another group of homeowners to talk to, or concerned citizens, I should say, to talk to our individual businesses to see how they feel about working with single-use plastics, because it has to be bought in by everybody in town. So once you get some conversations going with your businesses, you get the surveys in, analyze the data. ANJAC already has a lot of different programs that have been done by other towns. They have ordinances that you can tweak to fit your town and start from there. No, it doesn't have to be too much heavy lifting. So that was a good thing. Members of the ANJAC committee, the EC committee, once she was done talking, they started thinking about, okay, what can be our next steps? They already jumped into, maybe we can do some posters with the kids in the Bedminster school to start talking about single-use plastics. One of the members said, want the kids to talk to the parents and tell them single-use plastics are bad. So I think they've already started to have the wheels roll, and that should be a real good thing. The other thing that they brought up was the electric chargers that are in the back. And as of last week, they said it should be done by the end of the week. John, do you know if they're done yet?
They're cleaning up, I can see that. I don't know where they are with the project.
Right, so they should be almost done, so the chargers should be in.
It looked like they're installed.
It looks like they're installed.
There, I see them out there,
Yeah.
so they're there. I guess it's just final touches, and then we'll be good to go when we can get our new electric cars.
So Renee, and I'm completely obtuse on this conversation, this topic, because I just don't know, but has anybody contacted anyone who's pro single-use plastic bag? And the only reason I ask is that I see articles on the internet saying how, well, the use of a recyclable paper bag requires more carbon emissions than it does to take a plastic bag. I don't know what's true, what's not. I just don't. But it seems to me that we should probably get both sides of that story to see if it's pros and cons.
Exactly, and that's why Alex said you really need to talk to business owners, because things like the single use, they're cheap. They're small. You start to get into different kinds of containers, and it gets to be more expensive. It gets to be bulkier. They have to change the way they do business. So you have to talk to them and see what's important, and then you can mold a program for your town. But there's pros and cons on both sides. So it's a living, breathing conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, and real quick, I have a JVH meeting coming up this Wednesday, and they're going to start with their plans for Colonial Christmas. That's November 30th, December 1st, and December 7th and 8th. So everybody needs to put in their calendar.
Great.
And that's all I have.
That's plenty. Thank you. From my end, just quickly, Land Use Board is continuing with 2 Board of Adjustment zoning board applications. Mr. Hickey and I are not eligible to participate in those, but those are continuing, and there's a meeting coming up on October 3rd for one, and I believe the 10th for the other one.
Right.
Yeah. So those will continue, and looks like they're getting some robust discussions out there. Always good to see people coming out. This week, later on, I think make sure we have a meeting room, that BHC has a meeting coming up this week, so we'll be meeting with BHC, Renee and I.
I will not be
You will
there.
not be there. We also
Sorry.
have a library meeting this week as well. And I just do want to hit on a couple items and so as we reported in a prior meeting, the Public Employee Relations Commission upheld the appeal of the arbitrated award on the police contract, and the police PBA have elected to appeal that decision from the PERC to the appellate division, and so that's just filed last week. That's brand spanking new, and we will be talking to our attorneys about the appropriate response, and we'll probably talk about that a little further in executive session, but that's certainly public information, so let's put it out there. And speaking of police activity, you had a little incident, or a couple incidents, and if you could just do a quick report.
In a nutshell, on September 3rd, we responded out to Trump National Golf Course, which is it was a Tuesday afternoon, and the course was closed that day because Monday was a holiday. We got a call from one of the staff that they had observed a blue compact vehicle on the 11th green doing donuts. Well, by the time we got out there, obviously the actor was gone. We did obtain a piece of evidence, and it was specific to a Ford vehicle. Search on that car, zeroed in the make and model. The investigation continued. On Sunday, September 8th, at 3:30 in the afternoon, when the courses, members are on the course, the phantom car showed up again. This time it was described as a blue compact, and it was doing donuts on the 13th green. Luckily, the witness was able to approach the vehicle and help us by getting a license plate. The characters weren't all in, a logical road to come back with a vehicle hit. So through the investigation and investigative tools, we were able to identify the actual license plate, located the suspected individual, which some detectives from the prosecutor's office as well as Bedminster went out and paid a visit to one Richard McEwen and out of Milford. Took him in for questioning, and he was charged with third-degree criminal mischief. So, the totality of it, the two events, and there was one prior that wasn't reported to us, like just about $20,000 worth of damage. So he was processed, released, and he's innocent until proven guilty.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that recitation of the incident, and thank you all to the Bedminster PD who acted so quickly and were able to decipher the license plate and make that arrest. Thank you, Chief.
That name was in the news earlier in the
Yes.
week. In the week.
Yeah. Know that the newspapers have reported on the individual.
Right.
And I think from our end, we'll just leave it alone since it's now with the judicial system to deal with. And with that, Ms. Sullivan.
Two quick items. The time for us to register for the New Jersey League of Municipalities Convention is coming up in Atlantic City. What I originally sent out on Friday was the wrong dates. It's November 19th to November 21st. We need to make reservations for both anyone staying down at the hotel, and then some of the admission fees to the various programs that are offered over at the convention center. So if you plan on going, please let me know, either before you leave tonight or email me tomorrow. We need to make reservations like this week. So. Met today with the CFO, who reminded me that it's time for our annual renewal of our bond anticipation note. She was contacted by the bond attorney earlier today. We hope to do that renewal process. We will introduce it on the October 7th meeting. But if you do remember, we are currently funding our bond anticipation note through the sewer utility. So the interest that we're paying for this band is we're paying it to ourselves.
Right.
So the town is paying the interest to the sewer utility. The current ban is that we have only one ban, and it is for some open space, the Pidolato property out on Leamington Road, the purchase of a fire truck, and some heavy equipment for the Public Works Department. We have now paid off the Pidolato property portion of the ban. We still have 2 more small payments in, we'll pay that off this year in 2019. We'll have a few more small payments for the DPW equipment and the fire truck, and the ban should be completely paid off in 2022. And that will complete all our debt service. We have no other debt.
Okay,
That's
great.
great.
And for the next meeting, when that, we approve that by resolution, if you could just have in advance of that, those specific numbers.
Debbie met with me today. She said, I'm sure the mayor's going to ask me. She showed me her chart of, she'll have that
Great.
for you. She wanted me to just make sure I told you that because we did switch from the regular ban payment to fund it ourselves, we are required to continue to do that until the ban is complete. So we can't now decide we're not going to fund it through the sewer utility. We could decide to fund it through the open space trust account or some other method, but we would have to continue to self-fund it for the life of the ban. So
Great.
it's only till 2022.
Great, thank you. Moving on to discussion on introduced ordinances, we have none. Introduction of ordinances, we have none. But we do have a public hearing on an ordinance, and that is the ordinance number 2019-010. The ordinance establishes employee grades and salary ranges for 2019 and future years for non-contractual employees. May we have a motion to open up the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have, I'm trying to think if we have discussed this before, but Ms. Sullivan, just do a quick rundown of the changes.
So the ordinance that we had in place prior to this for this purpose was done in 2015. So there was 2 purposes to this ordinance. It was to update our salary numbers to make sure they're still in line with being, almost 5 years later. And we did have a meeting a few meetings ago with attorney Mr. Sordillo, who suggested that this also be updated due to the fact that there were a lot of salary levels that he recommended it might be better to have them more as an hourly rate from one level to another, so we did kind of reformat it. So we did those updates. We did not update the section that is currently referencing the Public Works Department because they are currently coming to us with a potential union contract, so that is status quo, but the others have been updated. So.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the Township Committee? Seeing none, we'll open it up to public comment on ordinance 2019-010. Seeing no questions from the public. Judy, do we need a motion to close?
Yes, we do.
Can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And we will need a motion to approve ordinance 2019-010.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
We have 5 items. I just want to confirm we have 5 items on the consent agenda. These are matters of ministerial activity.
There's one I just want to comment on. You'll see on there appointing a part-time violations clerk. I'm not trying to slip in a quick employee. We currently have 2 part-time violations clerks that will fill in when any of the court staff is out for vacation or sick, or out for any reason, especially for court day. The two part-time violation clerks that we currently use are also court administrators in other towns. So they have not been, when we called them recently, they have not been available. So we have another part-time person that we'd like to add to this list. We only pay them when we use them, which is, infrequently, but we need to have someone on a list to call when we have a need.
There's just one resolution that I'm looking for. Resolution 97, which is the resolution amending Resolution 2019-058.
That's
that was just
memorializing what was discussed. It was adopted at the land use board meeting, appointing their new secretary. That's just, we have to also make it part of our resolution as well. So that's just an update to our resolution from the land use board decision.
So if anyone wants anything pulled from the consent agenda, now's the time to do so. Otherwise, may we have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
Make that motion?
Second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Dickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Chambers?
Aye.
Thank you.
So moving on resolutions that are not on the consent agenda and that are certainly more than ministerial. Resolution 2019-094. This resolution authorizes the mayor and clerk to renew Bedminster Township's membership in the Suburban Municipal Joint Insurance Fund for a period of 3 years. Now, when we last looked at this resolution, Ms. Sullivan brought the resolution before us, and I volunteered Mr. Stevenson and Ms. Sullivan to just inquire a little bit further to make sure that the numbers that were being presented to us by the JIF were good numbers, certainly, and we've had good experience with the JIF. But now I think we've got a little more information from the two of you, right?
Yes. Thank you for sending me the information.
Okay.
Went through it, and, essentially, it's here, anybody wants to review it. I'll give you the quick hits. I mean, we've been an original member of this JIF since its inception in 1994, so we're going up on 25 years. We've had very, very good claims service, claims history, and some of the advantages, I think, in the JIF and why I would recommend that we continue this are as follows. Of the $8.8 million that the JIF has made in profits, they've kicked back to municipalities $5.3 million. We got a very significant dividend last year based on that. The claims history with this JIF are exceptional. The JIF actually has each participant at the municipal level, you're permitted to sit on the board, which is unlike other JIFs, so we actually have a direct say in what goes on. And I think most importantly, the members of the JIF include like towns. So when we share up and do shared services with our neighbors, we're both participating in the same JIF. It makes the efficiencies with getting insurance lined up for that is just easier. The other JIFs have larger, JIF, you're pooling risk, you're sharing risk. So if we were to go to another JIF, I mean, we run the risk of going into a JIF with a Newark, a large city, where you're not apples and apples in terms of what your risk is and what your risk tolerance is. So for those reasons, the very good claims experience we've had, the economics of it, the makeup of it, to me, it's an easy one. But it's one that we have to look at because there are other options out there. So we don't just rubber stamp stuff, but the information that we've got, and then Meeker Sharkey, who is our risk assessor, they provided us with information, they collected information from the JIF itself, and it's their recommendation that we stick with them as well. Of course, it's our call. I have no reason whatsoever to switch, but that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Ms. Sullivan, anything to add to Mr. Simpson's comments?
We had our JIF meeting last Thursday. I will tell you, in our JIF, there's currently a total of 6 towns that are up for renewal this year. One has already done so. The other 5 are going through the same process that we're doing here tonight. But nobody was really giving big consideration to leave, but they're doing their due diligence, as you should. The decision, we have to get back to them by October 1, so this is the last meeting we have before that time to let them know our decisions.
And the pricing, do we add any comparison about the pricing?
I'm sorry, Mayor, yes, I forgot to mention that. This JIF recognizes, lives by the 2% cap, whereas other JIFs do not. So they're in lockstep with what Trenton dictates, and I think that's also another consideration, that we've got a locked-in cap in terms of going forward, whereas other JIFs do not have that, and I apologize for not mentioning that.
Okay, that's a great point. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, just
Stevenson.
introduced our new budget, and it was actually slightly under 2%.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for either Mr. Stevenson or Ms. Sullivan?
No?
No?
Thank you for researching it.
Thank you, yeah, thank you both for taking that on and being so volunteered. May we have a resolution, I'm sorry, may we have a motion to approve resolution 2019-094?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Graneski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. Thank you, guys, again. Resolution 2019-100. This resolution appoints a municipal prosecutor for the shared court for the period of October 1, 2019 through December 31, 2020. Just a quick question to Mr. Bellardo. That's more than a year appointment. Is that okay? I'll take your indication as full support for the municipal activity. So, Judy, I'm going to turn this over to you, although you and I certainly have been in deep in these conversations with the shared court, and the shared court representatives and the judge, and engaged in the interviews themselves. But Ms. Sullivan, I will turn this on to you for a reason as to why we are contemplating this resolution.
Municipal prosecutor that we appointed at the beginning of 2019 resigned from the position early in the year. I don't remember the exact date. I'll say in the spring. Miles Winder, who had been our prosecutor previously and was helping out being the assistant prosecutor from time to time, gave me a call and said, hey, I heard the prosecutor, kind of left you, without much notice. He said if I can help out, I certainly would be happy to. He was our assistant, certainly knew the workings of the court. He stepped up, and the three shared towns did appoint him to take on that task. However, he told us at that time he was only going to be available through the month of September, because he and his wife are selling their home in Burnsville and moving to other property they have out in Washington State. So we did put RFPs, and we did interviews with representatives from Burnsville and Peapack Gladstone and Bedminster. Prosecutor Winder also met with us and guided us and gave us help with some of the questions to ask. But we, after some deliberation, we did make this recommendation to the three towns. I believe Peapack Gladstone has adopted a resolution, and Burnsville has also adopted a resolution in support of Mr. Porfido, and tonight we're the third town.
Right, so just as Judy indicated, we all participated with Prosecutor Winder, former Judge Winder, and former State Bar Association President Winder in the interviews. There were three interviewees who came in and went through sort of like the first cut, and they were passed on to the shared municipal court committee for further consideration. Mr. Porfido, first of all, was low bid by a significant amount, and multiple times we turned over to Miles Winder, given his experience locally and as a judge and as a prosecutor and as a criminal defense attorney, his thoughts on on the three interviews. He thought they were all tremendously qualified. But looking at the numbers, the experience, Mr. Porfido was the unanimous selection by shared municipal court. And once again, he is low bid, and he also happens to be a Burnsville resident, so he's right here. So the opportunity to come down and pick up documents when needed, or to meet with the staff over at the court, is very easily accessible to Mr. Porfido. And as Judy indicated, he's ready to start right away. In fact, we need him to start right away. And the other comment that I will make is that when the request for proposals went out, they were sent out to apply for the prosecutor for a shared court with 3 towns. So that's the 3 towns that are currently in the shared court. That's Bedford, Peapack, Gladstone, and Bernardsville. And there was also an indication that this prosecutor also serve, if it were to happen, a shared court with adding a 4th town, Bernards Township, in there. And the numbers that he came back with were pretty good, not just for the 3 towns, but for the 4 towns as well. So to the extent that we do engage as the Shared Municipal Court Committee with Bernards Township, that there could be a built-in prosecutor should Bernards Township choose to join us, and should the Municipal Court Committee choose to accept Bernards Township. So that's already built into the process. So thank you, Judy, for framing the RFPs so precisely.
Mayor, can I just jump in on something?
Yes.
So, years ago, when I was starting out in my legal profession, I interned at the Morris County Prosecutor's Office. I had the privilege of seeing Mr. Porfido in action. He was a prosecutor in Morris at the time, and I can just tell you that we will be in very good hands with him.
Great.
So I can tell you that from experience.
That's good to hear. If there are no further questions or comments, may we have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-100?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second? Go ahead.
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Bresky?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 2019-102. This resolution authorizes the award of the contract for trash collection, container rental, and hauling to Republic Services for a 2-year period beginning October 1, 2019. John, is this a John resolution or a Judy resolution?
It was a team effort,
A team effort.
yes.
So this is our 30-yard cubic dumpster we have at the Public Works facility we have here all the time, and then the 3 cubic yard dumpster we have here at the Town Hall building right behind us. So Republic Services gave us a proposal that was very comparable to their last contract. I think they've increased by dollars, not a lot of money. We did get one other bid proposal from Waste Management, and their first haul price was $200 higher than Republic Services. So it was a very easy decision at the time. So my recommendation is that Republic Services continue with the current contract. They've been a good contractor,
Reliable?
very reliable.
That's what you want in that business, right? Show up.
And they seem to blow up everybody else I know when it's.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments for Mr. Mann or Ms. Sullivan? Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-102?
So moved?
Second?
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Bresky?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the bill list. May we have a motion to approve the bill list pending review of individual invoices?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second?
Again, roll call, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Bresky?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. Discussion items. Are there anything that the Township Committee members want to put on for discussion that's not otherwise on for new business or old business?
So I just wanted to I've already mentioned it, but reiterate it here, the discussion of LEDs, I'd be happy to work with Committeeman Hickey, and I just volunteered you with me, to try to investigate to see if there's programs that we can try to help these homeowner associations out to make the right call on this. So I'd like to just stick that on new business if we
Sure.
could.
Renee, do you know if Hills Village has considered
They have. And there are good things and bad things.
on the LED lighting?
Mm-hmm. Small issue, one thing with it burning cooler is snow stays on them.
Ah,
So, but they last forever, but there are lots of little things, as with everything, pros and cons. So you'll have a lively conversation with that one.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And Hills, I'm sorry, the King Shopping Center, they did put the, did they put the LEDs in?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you remember? Do you know?
I don't know if they've done it
I
yet.
don't
changed
think they
lighting,
have. I was
but
there
They-
the other night.
They did.
It's
It's
really
still
dark.
I
Yeah.
thought they did. I'm not sure, it's still
Yeah,
very,
I thought.
still nice and dark.
That's real comforting.
But don't worry, the Christmas lights are going to go up next week.
Yeah,
That'll
oh,
help.
geez, so. All right, I'm certainly good for that, and outreach to each of the associations, I think is a good idea. And if there's anyone from John or Paul that you need for support on technical issues, please do so.
Okay, and the only reason I tongue-in-cheek it with Colin, obviously, is he just went through it here in the township. so-
Yes, right. Okay, on to new business, and we do have some updates. The amendment to the solicitation ordinance.
We do. We continue to work on that. We met last Thursday at 7 a.m., bright and early here at Town Hall with Chief Rock. Thank you, Chief, for making yourself, actually 7:30, available. We had lots of coffee, and we spoke with Chief Rock about the practicality of the application of the procedures that we have in the draft ordinance. So Ms. Moreski and I are thrashing through that. One of the things that came up, we need to reach out to Attorney Sardillo to talk about the applicability and the ability for RPD to enforce this ordinance within the associations within the Hills. So we're going to talk to Joe Sardillo about that, and we'll update you either at the next meeting, which I have a conflict, I have to be at a freeholders meeting, but maybe the meeting after that, or else Ms. Moreski can update you.
Okay, thank you. The Zombie House ordinance or proposals. Mr. Stevenson, you did touch upon this earlier. Anything further, or did your conversation was covered?
Yep.
Good. Short-term rentals, going to old business.
I have nothing new.
Nothing new?
Raised this at the annual meeting, just told them it was something we were working on, just sort of try to take their temperature on it again. It didn't seem to be a hot button item.
Really?
No, it didn't seem to resonate.
So Hills Highland did not seem to,
Didn't seem to be too concerned with it.
interesting. So that does not appear to be the case
Or,
with...
was that your take as well, Renee, or?
Yeah, nobody mentioned it, so either they don't know what's going on, or it's well-controlled and it's not bothering them.
Interesting, because certainly with Hills Village and Hills North.
They were more concerned about the dog park that isn't a dog park.
Okay. Engine braking, I assume that there's nothing
No,
new on that.
nothing new on
Pluckman Park. John, do you have any updates on the
I
litigation?
have not heard from either the prosecutor or Mr. Rogers, so I have nothing to add on that.
Okay. And Judy, we're
I
continuing...
believe it's slated for tomorrow.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
Okay. And continued enforcement activity by construction and
Yes,
zoning?
they met, the 3rd, they went to the site, zoning and code enforcement went to the site. On the 10th, they met with representatives from the ownership, and I believe they're coming back to court to some sort of mediation maybe tomorrow in court. I'm not sure, but I know there's some schedule tomorrow.
That
Maybe
uncommitted...
Mr. Rogers, you could remind him to continue to keep me in the loop,
Yeah.
so I can keep the committee in the loop.
And that sewer connection, what action are we taking with regard to that? Is that part of,
That's one of the violations. They're indicating that it's always been like that, and code enforcement is saying, prove it,
okay.
and that it's above ground. We find it very hard to believe. that it's
Yes,
always been
yeah,
above ground.
there's, whether it was always like that is a different issue, whether it is compliance.
Mayor, I'm sorry for being slow tonight. Can I just raise one issue on new business? It's just a question that came up by a
Sure.
resident recently. Are we aware, anybody in the room, of the township requiring residents to replace hot water heaters because of water issues in the hills? Is anybody aware of this?
What kind of work?
That there's water outside of the grounds in Village Green, and that they're required to buy water heaters? Is that Has anybody heard anything about this health, safety, anything? Because it was news
doesn't
to me,
make
and I
sense.
said I would ask, but I've never heard such a thing.
Do you know who is telling the resident that?
No.
You know what I mean? So,
Okay, so,
Maybe so
look,
where people-
I'm surprised by everybody looking at me like I'm from Mars, but it's, I was just wondering that I wasn't missing something, okay? I mean,
you know.
there's nothing like that, right? That we're aware of? I don't think that's our jurisdiction. We don't get into telling people when to get their water heaters, right? Okay.
To replace water heaters. So someone is asserting that the township rep or someone from the township is insisting that water heaters be replaced.
Correct.
Every so many years, just because.
No, this was like an acute situation, like you will replace your water heater. I don't, look,
No, we don't get involved with that.
okay,
If you replace it, we'll come inspect it, but
okay,
we don't tell you when to do it.
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
But you may just want to reach out to, I guess that would be Joe. Who else would, I'm trying to think who else would be, or the plumbing inspector, I'm just trying to think who else would even be close.
Our plumbing inspector?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I will, thank you.
Okay. Just P&L outages,
I am happy to report we have no new information.
that 6-hour outage that we,
That was just a little joke.
Okay.
One of the Jays was here before the meeting, reported that all is well, so glad to hear that things are progressing nicely.
Great. Public comments, the second opportunity to come up to the microphone and that lectern. Mr. Haggerty.
Good evening, Brian Haggerty, Fairview Drive, Mr. Former member of the Board of Education. The Board of Education Business Administrator would be very grateful for a phone call tomorrow, and is very grateful for the heads up about possible traffic disruptions with the buses. The LEDs inside the building were done, 2017 was completed. She may have information on LEDs outside on the parking lot there that may relate to the street lighting in the hills, if that's what you're up to. But from my personal knowledge, not speaking as a professional, if a water heater is broken in a residence, you have to have a new water heater, because you can't do it without a water heater. It's part of the habitation code, I think.
So you think it may be tied to a meter, broken meter or something?
The water heater might be tied to, if the water heater is not working, especially if it's a rental unit, you cannot not have the water heater replaced. Could be that, so I
Okay.
gotta check with the plumbing.
Okay,
Plumbing subcode official, might have been something like that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
That's it? Okay, thank you. Now, we do have an executive session, and we will be considering one resolution, so we will be taking, or may be taking action following a return to open session. So before we do go to executive session, this will be the opportunity for Township Committee comments. And once again, we will start with Committeeman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no comments.
No comments, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. No comments.
Nothing today, Mayor.
Happy birthday,
Oh,
Committeeman
thank you.
Stevenson.
Thank you.
Happy birthday!
My 18th birthday today.
And no further comments. May we have a motion
Okay, Drew.
to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
It is 8:28, and we will return hopefully shortly. Who's got the, you've got the bill list, okay.
Renee, Stacy, I'm all yours.
What?
I'm all yours.
I
What's
just have a
up?
question for you.
What's up?
So Chief, I was in far reaches of New Hampshire. My daughter for school. I turn on the news when I get back to my hotel room,
Didn't send my sweater
and I hear about you, and the local newscaster saying, hey, HPV heck of a job.
Well, you put your coat on.
I'm freezing.
I mean, it was.
The air conditioning done.
Yeah, exactly. You won't be a cold.
Yeah, it's going really well. Okay, back on.
We're back on. We're returning to regular session from the our closed executive session. It is 10:30. Based upon our discussions in executive session, we are not taking action on anything further tonight. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.